Before we start on this lesson, I want to issue a word of caution. This portion of the quilt will have curved piecing. So if you don't feel confident in your sewing skills and you've never done curved piecing before, you can follow along with us, or if you'd rather, I'm going to give you an option. This is our original design, and it has the mariner's compass in the center, versus this alternate design using the Regina block from the blocks that you've already downloaded and placing that in the center instead of the circle. This is a side-by-side view of the original with the mariner's compass and the revised version with the Regina block. It's up to you to choose what you want to do. Either way, I'll guide you through. We'll open up the blocks like normal, choose the Regina block, and on this we want to make sure that we set the block size to 10 because this block will be 20 inches altogether. You're going to need 4 copies, and I want you to make sure that you click off the printing the large sections separately. Otherwise, you'll get a lot more pages than you really want. As it is, it's going to take 4 pages to print each block because of the size. Remember, you're printing on 8.5 by 11 paper, and this is a 10-inch block that we're printing out. So we're going to have to do a little piecing. This is the way your block will print out in the orientation. So we're going to trim off the excess off of the first 2 pages, and we're going to tape those together. Then we're going to go to the bottom sections, and we're going to do the same thing. We'll tape those together, and then we'll tape the top and the bottom together, and we're going to measure them to make sure that we get them all taped up. They measure 10 inches square, and there's your finished block to get ready to work with. Now let's take a look at these 2 examples of the quilt. The first sample on the left shows the Regina block with all the various color options that the block offers. However, the quilt on the right allows that block to float in the center just like the mariner's compass does. So if that's the look that you want to go for, you want to make sure that all the pieces, all the segments that are surrounding the long points are all filled in with your background fabric. That'll allow that block to literally float in the center. Once you get that block finished, then you can proceed with the video the way we're doing the mariner's compass. Everything else will remain the same. Let's move on to the mariner's compass center now. I've included cutting templates for your mariner's compass so that you can cut them out on or print them out on a cardstock and just trace around them on your fabric. That way you can get them snuggled up as tightly as possible and use as little fabric as necessary. After you get them all traced out, then you can sit in your easy chair while you're watching TV and cut out your pieces. And remember, you don't have to be exact. This is paper piecing, and I've allowed a 1/2 inch all around on these templates, just like we have on previous lessons. So you have plenty of fudge room. In addition to the cutting templates, I have also included in your workbook the foundation pieces or papers that you need in order to do these blocks. You need to piece them together, and it'll tell you where to piece them. And again, it's because they're too big to fit on an 8.5 by 11 sheet. So there's 2 sections to each strip. There's a thinner strip and a wider strip. Each one will require that you piece it together. Once you get that all done, and you have your pieces all cut out, we're going to put those in the pizza box, and we're ready to start. You and I have gone through quite a few of these series now on the paper piecing, so I know you know how to do the paper piecing. I'm not going to show you that part again. So just follow the number sequence and the template color that you're going to be using and finish these blocks. What I will be showing you in this video is something that we've never done before. And that is going to be how to assemble these curved pieces. And now for the fun part. We've got all the sections done, the wide section and the narrow section. I've gone ahead and removed the paper from the back of both sections, and we are going to now piece these two together. The first thing we're going to do is this point right here is the center point of the wider block. This point right here is the center point of the narrower block. We're going to line those up just like that. Now we're going to put a pin in, but we're just going to let that pin take a real tiny bite because we want to be able to twist this upper part. Now some people, when they're piecing curves, call this the pie and the crust. The crust always goes on top. So now that we have that center pin in there, now we're going to go over here to the side and we're going to pin those. But this pin is going to take a bigger bite because we want to have that remain stable. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. Now most people absolutely panic when they have to sew a curve, and they end up putting a pin every 1/4 of an inch. If you want to do that, you can, but let me show you a much easier way. With just those 3 pins, we're going to sew this together. So we're going to start out here, and because we don't have the line to go by that we went by before when we were putting pieces together, we have to rely on the 1/4 inch position on your machine. So I've got mine set up to stitch a 1/4 of an inch, and I'm going to reposition my camera just a smidge so you can see how I'm going to do this. So I'm going to take a couple stitches just to get going, and I'll anchor those. My goal now is to keep both the edge of the crust and the edge of the pie exactly together. And I can do that with my finger. And as I do that, maybe I'll stitch just a 1/2 inch at a time. Stop. Reposition. Make sure we're still lined up here. Stitch another 1/2 inch. Now I'm fortunate in that with my foot on my machine, I have it set up that every time I stop, my foot raises just a little bit. If yours doesn't do that, then you probably would want to raise it yourself. Now I'll show you how that works. I'll take the automatic foot raise off of mine. So now I'm going to go like that, and then I'm just going to lift it just a little bit. Stitch another 1/2 inch or so. Make sure I'm still lined up on this edge. Let go of some of the pressure by lifting the foot a little bit. Get it back on the edge. Stitch another 1/2 inch or so. Do the same thing. Get it back on the edge. And sometimes it's nice to even use a stiletto or something like that if you're comfortable with that. Me, I like to have my fingers in the mess. But you want to be careful not to pull too hard on this upper edge because we are talking about a bias. So in this case, I can just put my stiletto down like that and guide that fabric in. And I'm going to keep going until I get to the pin. That was the center pin that we put in, remember? So we'll keep going. Now we're going to take the pin out. Now we're going to come back down the other side, and I'm going to put my automatic foot lift back on again because frankly I'm spoiled. But you see how you could just reach back there and lift it up yourself. Now we're going to come back down the other side. And again, we want to make sure that we're staying on the edge. We're just going to work our way around. This really isn't too hard if you just take your time and don't concentrate on the whole circle. Just concentrate on a 1/2 inch at a time. I'm getting a little off here, so I want to fix that. Hold it back down with my stiletto. Come down to the last pin. Lock my stitches. So now you have something that looks like that. But when you lift it up, it looks good. We're going to press it out now and see how good it looks. And after a quick press, our pieces have come together well. Now let's concentrate on template G and template H1 and 2. Template G is the circle that goes in the middle of our mariner's compass, and template H1 and 2 have to be put together, and I'll show you how. Now that you have the template pieces cut apart, we're going to set up away to the side template G and work on template H1 and H2. Because of the size of this template, I couldn't fit it for you on one page or in one piece. So we need to piece these two together, and there's markings on the template that say a line, dotted line on section H1 and tape sections together. And right here it says tape section H2 here. Here's H2, we're taping it there. We know we have it lined up correctly. So we'll tape this together just like that, and now you have the full size template. So now we're going to use these templates to cut out the remaining pieces for your center compass. So I've selected the fabric that I want to make the center circle out of, and this is the easiest way to cut this piece out. I just fold I have it doubled, and I'm going to fold back an edge wide enough for my pattern piece to fit on, like so. Now I'm going to take my marker, and you can use whatever marker you prefer. Mine is a ceramic chalk. You can use a friction. You can actually use a pencil if you're working with a lighter fabric, because this isn't going to show. This is just giving you something, guidelines to cut against. And so now I have it marked. It might be hard for you to see, but it really is marked. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to carefully pin this together, these layers, because I don't want them to shift when I'm cutting them out. So we're just going to put a few pins in to keep that from sliding away. And now we're just going to cut a hunk out here just to make sure that the whole piece is in there. Now you can either continue to do the cutting with your scissors, and hoping you can see my marks on there. So you can continue to cut these pieces out with your scissors, or you can use your rotary cutter and carefully go around that curve. And now we have some straight edges to do, so we could actually use a ruler here for some help. But you have to be careful with the ruler though, because it might slide on the pins. So you're really better off to just eyeball this with your rotary cutter, or again, you can go back to cutting it with your scissors if you feel you have more control that way. So we have that end cut. We just need to cut along this line. And just that easily, we have 4 pieces cut from template G, and they're ready to be sewn together. Now, if you want to get real fancy, you could cut a section, these 2 sections from one color and these 2 from another, or you could cut each section from a different color. It's totally up to you. It's your quilt. Now we're going to do the same thing with the other template, and I'll be right back with you. Now there's another way that you can do this template where you can use your rotary cutter. Again, I have 4 layers, and this is all cut out of the background fabric. So we're just going to place this on the fabric, and because you're cutting this out of cardstock, it's kind of hard to get a pin through it. So I'm going to tape this template down to the fabric, just like I would use pins. You'll notice in my videos I use a lot of tape. I have a dispenser in my sewing room because there's just so much you can do with it. I used to teach basic sewing classes, and I think one of the favorite classes the people had that I taught was how to put a zipper in without pins, just using Scotch tape. They loved it. Okay, so now we have that pinned in place. The hardest part to cut is along the curve. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to cut that out first, because if some reason this tape were to slide or slip or come off, it's real easy to put a straight edge down to cut the rest of it. But we want to make sure we get this curve really nicely done. So I'm going to stand up to do this because I don't cut so well when I'm sitting, and I'm going to proceed to cut along this curve. And as you cut, it's going right through the tape. So there's the hardest part done. That went pretty quick. Now all we have to do is take a straight edge, put it down on the template, and cut. Turn it around, put it down on the template, and cut. And the only thing left to do now is to cut off these end pieces. And we can do that by just holding it in place. And we have another one down here at this end. Again, we're just going to hold it in place and cut. And with the magic of Scotch tape, we have 4 of our pieces cut from template H1, H2, and ready to be sewn to our center compass.